Welcome to the first episode of Market on the Wagon.
Market on the Wagon, we're calling it because Chase here is sober for Lent.
I gave up alcohol for Lent, which the last 7 years I've given up meat for Lent. But as you can tell, by as meaty as I am right now,
Beefcake.
I have been on my workout grind for, since September, which you probably couldn't tell from how I looked in the other videos. But now that we've had a couple-month break from this podcast, which is really sad.
You've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, so I'm down 16 pounds, and I thought as like a last effort before my big trip to Japan, where I will indeed be drinking and eating, I thought I'd give up alcohol for that last run. And then when I come back, I'll probably have to make up.
Clay just got back from Japan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was there for 10 days. Said it was awesome.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy. All the white people are going to Japan these days.
Where in Japan are you going to go? I feel like I was there because he talked all about it.
Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and Okinawa.
That is exactly what he did.
Oh, he went to Okinawa too?
I don't think he went to Okinawa. I know he went to Osaka and Kyoto. I think he said Kyoto. He said that Tokyo was his least favorite, that it's just so fucking busy, like insane.
But there seems like the most things to do there.
That's
Okinawa has been my dream bucket list item for like the past 7 years or so. So
that's where Mr. Miyagi's from.
I believe that.
Yeah. You know, when he's on the pole with the crane, doing the crane pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know Miyagi.
Yeah, he's doing his vulture pose.
Yeah, good dude.
Letting the parasites go back in.
Yes.
All right, let's get the real estate party started here.
There it is.
I made some notes just because there were things that were burning me in my mind. But I know that you want to talk about cash out refis, and I kind of had something to bounce that off of. But let's just start there.
You want to kick it off there? Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people that, you know, pretty much bought like pre-2023, and they have just a ton of equity. And we've really been doing a lot of the home equity lines of credit lately, cash out refinances. But what's been really interesting is that depending on who you are, you know, times are tough. And I've talked to a lot of people who have accumulated a lot of debt. And we've been putting together scenarios that, shockingly, even if you're sitting on like your 2 or 3% interest rate, depending on how much debt you're carrying, we call it a blended rate, meaning, you know, the amount of interest you're paying on this portion versus the amount of interest that you're paying on this portion. When we consolidate all that debt together, we get what's, you know, ultimately called like a blended rate. And it's actually been more advantageous for some people to pay off their debt and get rid of their maybe 3 or 4% and take a higher interest rate, because the interest that they are paying on their credit cards is just, it's killing them, right? And they've got all this equity in their property because of appreciation and everything along those lines. And it's the part of my job that I don't hate it. It's what I started in the beginning. In my first 10 years, I was really mainly a refinance rep. And the part that I don't like about it is that it's not really fun and exciting. You know, no one gets like keys in the end. And so they're usually conversations with people that they need money. And so we've been doing more of those, and I wanted to chat a little bit about it just because I'm trying to get more footage out about it, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are kind of going, shit, how am I going to pay all of these bills? But they're sitting on, you know, a little mini mountain of cash with their home.
I feel like it would actually be really exciting to have closing day on my cash out refi. So I kind of had this thought that bounces on that. The other day I was thinking maybe it was a bad idea for me to sell my last flip. And my main reasons, and I get a calculator, but I don't know how to use it, so probably won't.
Would you like
round numbers?
You want to give me some numbers and I'll take care of it?
Yeah, as you like to say, broad strokes.
Sure.
So I was all in this bad boy for, let's see, I had a loan that I had to pay back that was $160,000, and I was all in at 300. So basically, I bought the house for $250. I had put in another $50 into remodel. I was all in at 300. It appraised for 410. I knew I had to pay back that loan amount of 160,000 because the rest I had paid in cash.
Okay.
And I mean, my idea was maybe instead of selling it and getting that $230,000 in profit, maybe I should have instead refinanced, kept 80,000 in the deal, which would have been 20%, and then taken like 170 as cash, paid back that loan, and then once it's rented, that would have paid that off every month. I would have had, 230 to 170. Both are incredible amounts to get back on the flip and still have 80,000 in it in equity. I would have made a lot more money. Wouldn't have all the fees of selling and whatnot, paying the buyer's agent, all of that stuff. And then it would have still had the property as well.
Correct.
Now, I have other personal reasons on why I wanted to sell that one specifically, but I feel like maybe I should have burred out of it, as they say, instead of selling it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the comment that you just made. You had personal reasons for doing what you did, right? And that's really what it boils down to. The term I use a lot is just appetite. What do you have an appetite for? I've been doing my own personal real estate long enough to know that I'm not a major fan of holding properties and turning them into rentals, simply because I just don't really want to deal with any more people than I already do in my life as clients. And for me, again, back to what you said, like, the way you went about it is probably the same way I would have went about it as well. But there are people out there that, they turn them into rentals. They deal with the tenants. I even know people that, they're like, why would I deal with the tenants? I have a management company deal with it. And I guess, that cuts into potential profitability. And then I think lastly, it's about money now or money later. I don't think that there's any right or wrong answer with that. I mean, no one knows what the future will hold, but it's like, you said you made about 230,000, and some would argue a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And, real estate hasn't gone like gangbusters over the last 2 or 3 years. And I don't know what you did with that money, but as long as you put it to work, I would tell you that at least in the short term, it's easy for me to say you probably made the right decision. Because if you would have held on to it, in the last 24 months, you probably didn't see a ton of appreciation. But then again, maybe
I just sold it in February, so
I see.
We're talking in the last 2 months,
right? Well, and so I mean, it's easy to look back, right? And then you can look back and say, "Shit, I should have hung on to that property because now it's worth $550,000." Or, gosh, I don't even want to put it out in the universe, but like things could just kind of stay, where they are right now. And you're like, I'm so glad that I took that money and did what I did with it.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, when I was taking that money out, my expectation, which I have it currently in a high-yield savings account that's bearing like 5% interest, that money's coming back out as soon as I have another opportunity. But when I sold it and got the money, I said, this is going into fueling the next flip. But on the next one, maybe I might consider refinancing out of it and holding on to it. It's not that I necessarily don't want to be a landlord. I mean, I don't, but
right. I know what you mean.
Yeah, cost benefit. It might be worth it in the long run to hold on to some assets instead. My reason is just because it's right next door to my house, and there's emotional ties with the family of the man that used to live there. So I didn't want them to ever come back to me asking for money.
We've talked about the man who used to live there on this podcast.
I know we have.
He's just making his way back from the dead.
Every
Pun
day.
intended.
The best part. So I recently bought a Tesla, everybody. And if you're driving in the Tesla...
That's what you do when you become a realtor, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. You buy an electric vehicle. That or the BMW. I haven't bought that yet. The car will tell you when you're driving past a person. It'll show it on a little screen, like this little gray figure. It also shows ghost. Wow. And every morning I'm driving out of this driveway, it shows a person standing in my front yard, which... just like my next door neighbor used to do every morning. So I just wonder if it's seeing his ghost every day.
Do you think if it is his ghost, do you think he's happy or sad?
Oh, I think I stuck it to his stepdaughter for sure.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then he's happy. Okay. Fair enough.
Maybe. I don't think she'll ever listen to this.
It'd be great if she did. Anyway, going back to like the refinance thing and taking cash out. But yeah, I think it is about appetite. But the point I was trying to make, and this is something I definitely I'm going to make this a clip for sure. We in lending say that when you don't really need a loan is when every lender wants to give you a loan. But when you really need a loan, lenders typically don't want to lend money. And what I mean by that is the hardest time to get a loan is when you need one. And I unfortunately find that, if people compartmentalize their credit card debt differently than their auto debt and differently than their home debt. When in reality, like, there are some nuances to that, but the truth is it's all debt. And the name of the game is to get things financed at the lowest possible interest rate you can. And I watch people that have equity and they hold off on, paying off credit cards or doing any of those things because somehow in their mind they're like, no, we're going to take care of this. We're going to fix this. And we're going to pay it off. We're going to budget this. We're going to cut back on this. Netflix is getting canceled, whatever it is. I don't know what the statistic is, but I'll have you guess. What do you think in terms of the workforce in the U.S.? How many people do you think are commission-based versus like a mainly salary?
I'm taking a wild guess, and I would say maybe by commission-based, you also mean self-employed as well?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I'm thinking like 15% are
right.
self-employed.
I'll just use the 80-20 rule and say that only 20% of people are, some sort of commission-based, whether it's self-employed or anything like that. And the reason I think that's important is because that means 80% of the people in the workforce ultimately work in a situation to where like they know what they're getting paid. There's no opportunity for some like crazy commission to hit, right? It's not like, okay, I'm going to go out and sell like 2 or 3 of these and I'm going to make a big commission check. I'm going to pay off this debt. So when people are compartmentalizing their debt and, I've seen $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in like revolving debt on a semi-regular basis, especially lately. This is kind of my public service announcement. Like if you're sitting in some sort of, salary base, sure, maybe you get like $1,000 bonus a month or something. That's not going to get you there before it's too late. Cause I unfortunately get the phone call like, hey, we want to do an equity line or we want to take cash out. I just did one last week for a gentleman where we had to get rid of his 3% interest rate and do a traditional refinance because he's racked up so much credit card debt. His credit score is currently like a 650. And you don't get equity lines with a 650 credit score.
Yeah, that's the other challenge. You want to take money out, you have to prove credit worthiness
right,
to get the loan to pay back.
So I have people that call me and they're like, hey, I want an equity line. And I'm like, okay, like let's talk about this. Because a lot of times when I'm like, well, like, no, don't want to mess with that 2%. I'm like, I get it. And then we pull credit and it's like, you're buried. Shit. It's like, well, you don't even qualify for an equity line. I mean, most equity lines of credit are going to start at a 680, and that's, most companies are going to want a 700 plus credit score. And if you're buried in debt, you probably no longer have that. And I know you can tell me the story about how you used to have an 800 credit score, but then this happened and that happened and the kid needed braces. It's all good. I hear you. But you're not getting an equity line of credit, and that 2% has got to go. And I've watched people it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm not getting rid of this 2%. I've seen memes about it. Like,
at what point do you think credit scores are a good thing or a bad thing to have?
Ooh, I could talk about a lot about this.
Well, I got a scenario. So I was just working with a renter client.
Uh-huh.
He applies to this rental. They said, hey, we have a minimum 650 credit score requirement. His FICO said he's at a 704. His TransUnion or whatever the other one, Equifax, whatever it is, said it was 648.
Mm-hmm.
They said, sorry, you've been declined from this $1,300 a month rental.
Right.
Because of a 648 credit score.
Yeah.
And he said, well, look, FICO says it's 704. Plus, they show a report on the TransUnion where he did the credit check, and it shows he's made every payment on everything. Now, why he has a lower credit score than 650, we're not sure. It could be from things way in his past. But I feel like credit scores are stupid in comparison to the proof that you pay your bills.
Well, I mean, credit scores are based on proof that you pay your bills. And when we run into a situation, so your FICO score is, ultimately going to be what we call like a middle credit score between your 3 bureaus that most agencies use, which is TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And the only time I ever see big gaps in the way that they differ is if there is if there's a creditor that only reports to one bureau. So for example, like big banks and stuff like that, if you take out a Chase credit card, Chase Bank, not Chase Cangelosi.
Take out a credit card with me.
If you take out a card with like Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo being a big company, when they report your payment history, they're reporting to all three bureaus. But if you're dealing with like a smaller credit union, or if you're dealing with, say, like a management company, and you burned them on like a last month's rent, or you screwed up the house, and there was tons of money in damage, and they're going after you for it, they may only report to one credit bureau. And so now like your Equifax can be 700, your TransUnion can be 700, and all of a sudden your Experian is like 640. And it's like, well, that seems goofy. Why is that? If we look at your credit report and look at what's derogatory, I can tell you, and truthfully, credit reports are not easy to read. But I could tell you like, well, here's what's negative on the report, and here's why it's only affecting this score, because they're only reporting it to this bureau. But to answer your question, as somebody who 20 plus years in the industry, I was thinking about this the other day. I have closed well over 1,000 transactions, which means I have like pulled, probably close to 10,000 credit reports. And I unfortunately am here to tell you that there is a very strong direct correlation between your ability to repay and who you are based on your credit score. The only time I ever see someone who has bad credit that is ever in a situation that, involves something completely out of their control, is when their like health is on the line. It's like, I got into a major car accident, I couldn't work. Or, I've had instances, it's like, I got cancer, I was going through chemotherapy, I couldn't work. When I see those things and you see the medical bills on the credit report to, prove it too, and you kind of go, yeah, okay. But like the divorce stuff, or, job loss, or there's all these, things that I get, and when people tell me why their credit's bad, and I see the data versus like what the story is, it very rarely ever adds up. It's usually a lot of, well, this guy's, this company screwed me over. And I think that the one thing that credit proves more than anything, and I talked about this actually on the podcast with Todd Bailey, shout out to Todd Bailey. When creditors do something that you don't think is right, not paying them and flipping them the bird is not what you do, right? It's not the right thing to do. You come to the table, you have figuratively, you have a conversation, and, you figure it out, right? You don't just say like, well, I owe you money, not as much, and that's just, and so I think that that's like a life lesson in general. It's like, you shouldn't trash talk someone, right? If you have a problem, you call them and you say, hey, like, I don't like the way you treat me. You do that to your creditors too. It's the difference between a short sale and a foreclosure. Two totally different things, right? Both of them, you can't afford to pay for your house. One of them, you cooperate with the bank. The other one, you straight up say, fuck you, it's your problem. And both of those scenarios are totally different in the way that they'll affect your credit, and totally different in the longevity that it will affect your credit. So I don't think credit scores are stupid, but what there is a lot of talk about is the possibility that, and this is like, I've heard this come and go, is the possibility that what they want to start doing is using AI and having people upload their bank statements. And what their bank statements are going to do is be able to tell how much money you have coming in, how much money you have going out, your bills being paid on time or not. We're going to see, what do you call it? If you have overdraft and stuff like that, and actually almost creating, for lack of a better term, a credit score based on like your bank statements. Do you think that would be a better way to judge whether or not somebody was creditworthy?
Yeah, I think I'd rather that, because that is proof right there of how you manage your money. And going through with AI, they could say exactly how you're spending your money. And let's say they notice a trend. Okay, now all of a sudden you're spending a whole lot more time at bars, or spending a lot more money at the Red Rose Strip Club every month.
Right.
I mean, they could see a trend. Actually, I think everyone should probably go through this, because if they see a trend happening as far as their spending, there might be a problem that they need to manage with themselves.
Well, credit agencies kind of do that, right? So as an example, like I run into instances where someone will buy a car, and then maybe a couple weeks later I pull their credit and they're like, oh man, I got an 800 credit score. I was just at the dealership. I'm like, okay. They showed me my credit and everything, and we pull their credit and it's now like a 720. And they're like, what the fuck? Like I was just at a dealership. And it's like, your credit will go back up to 800, but it's almost like credit agencies like try to throttle you down a little bit, because they're like, we know you just bought a car. You probably haven't like established what your new kind of like financial lifestyle is like with this new automobile. So we're going to kind of just like tweak you down a little bit. And if you make a couple of on-time payments, you go right back to an 800, right? Because again, to your point, like what they don't want to have someone do is be like, all right, I'm getting a car. Now I'm getting the house. Now I'm buying the boat. And then all of a sudden you've racked up, with a house, a car, and a boat, shit, you could rack up $1 million worth of debt. And you're like, I can't afford any of this.
I got to say, driving around in my 2025 Tesla made me want to spend more money, because I'm like, you know what? Driving around this nice car, I should also be able to do this and this and that.
Ina told me I wasn't allowed to get a nicer car because we don't have a nice enough house to park it at. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, she's a follower of Robert Kiyosaki, obviously.
Is that right?
You buy your toys with the cash flow from your assets.
Oh, no, that's not what she meant.
No. She just meant she wanted a nicer house to live in.
Yeah, she's like, we can't be driving a really, really nice car in our middle-class house. No, it's just like, it just wouldn't look right. She always talks about, she says that Russians are, this is just a blanketed cliche, is that they always, want to wear tons of jewelry, and they wear like all their Gucci and all their name brands and everything along those lines. And she's always like, I think it's kind of ridiculous if you're going to like wear all of this like name brand stuff, but then like you're going to wear maybe like, I don't know, like just regular Levi's, but then you're going to wear like a Gucci belt. And it's like, you have to keep up with this whole thing if that's what you're really doing. I'm like, okay.
The car is the accessory to the house.
Correct. And the house doesn't match the...
That kind of reminds me of people who wear dress shoes with jeans.
Yeah. Yep. I do not wear dress shoes with jeans. That is not a thing.
Do you think, going back to your credit card people, do you think people are taking on more credit card debt right now than they have been 100%. In previous years?
I mean, that's...
What's causing this?
That's like public knowledge. Well, I mean...
Or has it always only gone up?
No. I mean, right now in the nation, we have more credit card debt than we have ever had in the history of credit cards. And it's due to a combination of things. But the main thing is, I mean, it's inflation, right? Things cost more. No matter what it is, especially if you have children and everything along those lines. And so people have to figure out ways to make ends meet. And the one thing that's really interesting to me on this run, because, I've seen kind of the cyclicalness of credit card debt. And, because an example of the opposite was during COVID. I mean, we had the lowest amount of household credit card debt ever. And I think a lot of that was just due to the fact that we, people were making more money, right? And you also had a lot of people that were getting government stimulus, that some of them were smart about it, and they weren't racking up credit cards. They were, living within their means. And then more importantly, cost of goods was relatively, cheap. So it was kind of a perfect storm for a short period of time. But then inflationary stuff hits, and people are really good at getting used to a lifestyle.
Yes. I think there are people who would rather take on more debt than reduce their lifestyle they've grown comfortable with.
And what I will say in the defense of, anybody that's like anybody who's older than maybe like 30, they have all remembered a time when they, credit card debt went up and they figured it out or whatever. I mean, because, we had 2008 and you had all the HARP loans and everything along those lines. And I mean, it's credit card debt's interesting, man. I know a lot of people who have filed bankruptcy and it's been like the best thing that they've ever done, but they racked up like 40 or 50 grand that they just went, I can't pay it. And, you walk a hard road for like 2 or 3 years, but it's gone, like gone. And I don't, what am I trying to say? I don't suggest that you just like in your 20s go crazy and spend a shitload of money and, live a wild life for a little while and then say fuck it. But I've seen it a lot, like a lot. So it's just interesting. Americans just don't stop spending. That's really what it is. I personally believe that that's a lot of what's wrong with the economy currently is that we can't seem to crash. They want this soft landing economically, and I understand that. But the problem is that like every time we do like reports on consumer spending and everything along those lines, it just doesn't stop. And I think it's all just credit cards. And I could really go down a rabbit hole on this because then, the credit card companies, when you file bankruptcy, they're going to write that off as, a loss and they're profitable. And it's all just this fucking hamster wheel of just money just churning.
I agree. Okay. Two other questions that came to mind.
Sure.
I get a lot of people. Actually, this is kind of an age group that I'm only beginning to get into, but people, especially in their mid-30s, that'll say, my credit isn't good because of my recent divorce.
Yep.
I haven't got the opportunity to get divorced yet.
I have.
But what part of the divorce ruins your credit? Is it just, I'm not paying that, screw it, neither of us are going to pay that? Or is there something that happens during this legal proceeding that ruins your credit?
Oh, this is a great question. So this is honestly one of my biggest pet peeves that I obviously don't talk about with clients because, they tell me this and I just go, okay. To answer your question, I would say 9 times out of 10, what destroys the credit is you have two people that are living with a 2-income life. And one of them or both of them are unwilling to, cut back. Anybody who has been in a relationship for an extended period of time and then gets out of one, whether it's a marriage or a relationship, that like that dual income is a little easier than being totally on your own. I guess maybe you could argue if you were the breadwinner and the other one wasn't, but that's really tough for the other person then. And so what typically ends up happening is they either, everyone's like, oh, we're going to split up. Oh, well, I need to get a house because we have 2 kids and you can't have 2 of everything you have now. So it's the lifestyle thing. That's usually the main thing. People just are unwilling to live within their means, right? What I also see is people that are just unaware of what is going on with their financial situation. So, for example, it's like, oh, my wife ran up a bunch of credit card debt, and then we're getting a divorce, and it's all in my name, right? And I would argue that that's crazy. So, like, you have accounts out there with your spouse, and I get it. It's like, well, we should trust each other. It's like, well, maybe you should just keep an eye on your finances on a semi-regular basis. And hypothetically, if your wife has credit cards that are in your name, you should kind of know what's going on. I'm not saying like monitor like where the spending is happening per se, but like you should know how much credit card debt is out there. Because I do hear that. It's like, and I had no idea. And now I'm strapped with $20,000 worth of debt that I wasn't aware of. But then the question becomes, but who's making the payment? If the card was in your name, who made the payment? And so sometimes I see that it becomes this like resentful debt where it's like, well, I didn't spend that money, so I'm not paying it. And again, it goes back to kind of what I said where, it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to have good credit? Because in that scenario, you can't have both. Because you open up a credit card that's in your name that your soon-to-be ex-wife spent all this money on. You had no idea about it, but yet you were making the payments on it. It never jives. So, like, back to your point, like, I got divorced. It did not financially hurt me. Did I lose a lot of furniture and stuff and not have the money to rebuy it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I did. And if I was like most people, I would have somehow justified spending like $20,000 on furniture because I need furniture, Chase. Like, do you? Do you? Do you need that stuff? No. Like, so I bought it as I went. I didn't rack up a bunch of debt, and I didn't like kill myself to try to maintain the lifestyle that I was living with a dual income. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot more sense. See, I guess everyone, like I've just heard that so many times. My credit is ruined because of my divorce. But it's not because of the divorce. It's because someone didn't pay something.
Correct.
And they're just casting blame on who should pay. That makes sense.
Yep. Every time. Or it's, like I said, it's the whole like so-and-so took everything out of my house and I needed all new things.
Yeah.
And I had to spend $20,000 that I didn't have, and it turned out that I couldn't really afford, the payments on all of the new stuff that I bought.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That one really drives me crazy.
Nobody needs stuff. And, I feel like there would be a really nice feeling if my house and everything in it just like burned down, but fully insured so I could get the money for it.
And then you could like start over.
Yeah, just start over
I did that.
With just the money for everything. I don't really care about my house that much. It'd be nice. I don't know. I mean, there'd be some, some treasures that would be lost, but just a couple things.
This is a funny story. I woke up Sunday. I was out partying pretty hard. And I woke up on a Sunday and I hear people downstairs in my living room. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It's probably like 11 a.m. So it's, it's kind of late in the day, but it was a Sunday and I was getting after it on Saturday. And I come down and my friends are loading a couch into my living room, a used couch because my buddy was moving. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And they're like, dude, you don't have any furniture. You haven't had furniture for like months. I'm like, I don't need furniture. I'm never here. And I'm not going to like go out and finance furniture. They're like, no, you need some furniture. And the gesture was nice and I appreciated it. But this stuff smelled so bad. He had this really big dog. And I left it in my place for like a month. And then, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, as I tell the story, that's what made me buy new furniture. Because I should have
having smelly shit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be mattress on the floor, lawn chair kind of guy.
I had a bed. I wasn't mattress on the floor, but I had a really nice kitchen with a bar top and a dining room table. And anytime I had people over, I would just entertain in my kitchen with the bar top and everything. I did not have any couches or any spare bedroom stuff or anything along those lines. But most of the time, I was just out. But it's just like I said. I mean, going back to the divorce thing, was like I just didn't think it was best practices financially for me to go out and buy, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 worth of stuff to just refurnish my place right away. It's foolish. That's what people do.
I agree. I feel like for me, all my furniture just came as hand-me-downs one at a time. Okay. That's good stuff.
I got questions for you.
All right. I got more for you after.
Yeah. So we were talking about this. I had Brian Reynolds on, the electrician, but I can't really do real estate talk with him as much because, well, he's an electrician. But I was talking about how this year in 2025 has been really strange, in my opinion. We had 2023, which was, a slow year for some. 2024 seems to be the one that was, really slow for real estate agents, right? Because like 23, I kind of saw it coming. I always say that we as lenders are kind of like the canary in the coal mine, right? Like we see, we see the approvals, we see the conversations, like the people who are real, right? And then we get them out shopping. So in 23, I kind of saw things softening. And, I had agents that were like, 23 was a great year. And if you had a wonderful year in 23 as a real estate agent, congratulations. I'm happy for you. 24, in my opinion, was much better than 23. But when I talked to a lot of real estate agents, they're like, that was the worst year of my career. So going into 25, I wouldn't say I had like high hopes. I personally thought that 24 was going to be similar to 25, where, we're making this slow kind of climb. And it's going to be April 1st next week. So we're already done with first quarter. And when I'm looking at the production, I'm seeing this huge disconnect between the amount of approvals that I have and the amount of closings that I'm doing. I keep really good tabs on the amount of approvals versus the amount of closings, and I kind of have like just a little math ratio of like, okay, if I have X amount of approvals, I can pretty much know that I'm going to close like between this and this every single month. And that number is getting skewed in a way that I haven't seen in a very long time, regardless of the market, right? So I have so many approvals right now, more than, I would say almost as many as I had in like 2020 and 2021, where like in 2020 and 2021, I was averaging like 8 to 12 closings a month. And right now I have the exact same amount of approvals, and I am averaging probably about 5 to 6 closings a month. And so I look at all of this, and I know number one, part of it is I am seeing more mutual releases than I have seen in a really long time. But I want to ask you from the agent side, like, what are your thoughts on that? Are you able to echo anything that I just said, or are you seeing something totally different?
By mutual releases, you mean purchase agreement terminated or agency agreement?
Yeah, like, buyer seller, like whether it's from inspection, option period, it's just like, gotcha. Hey, we're parting ways. I'm not buying your house.
Gotcha. I think part of this might be, well, okay. So are you tracking if those same people had closed with another lender, or these people just haven't done anything?
Right. No, they have not. They have not bought a home yet. No.
Okay. I think part of it is people are shopping for a lot longer. They're seeing more inventory on the market. They're seeing more is upcoming. I feel like in previous years, I would get a lot of people that, and I still get a lot of people that will talk to me in the very beginning of the year, and they'll say, this is my year. I want to make a move this year. And then they might have that initial conversation and then do nothing after, or they might go through the effort of getting pre-approved and then just kind of sit on it. Mm-hmm. But I also really love when people get pre-approved, and I always try to push them to do it right away because it just starts burning a hole in their pocket. And I know the same thing happened for me. I got my pre-approval letter, and I was like, let's go.
It builds confidence.
Yeah, same with when I sold that flip and got $230,000 in my pocket. I made 4 offers on homes last week. Didn't get any accepted. But so I think the people might be taking longer. Also, I find that, I mean, people have been pretty picky since the market changed. But I find people are being lesser grateful. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but if the smallest things aren't going their way, I think they're getting sour about it a lot sooner.
Is that buyers or sellers or both?
A little of both, because buyers think that, again, everything a buyer knows is just because of what realtors are telling them. So realtors are saying, buyers, you have an edge right now. You should be getting whatever you want. Work with me. And then the buyers don't get everything they want, and they're sour about it. The sellers are looking at the price that they were going to be under contract for, or are under contract for, and they're saying, man, I wish I had gotten the price that I should have gotten 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So they're annoyed that they're selling at that price too. Ultimately, both people just want things to go their way and to make it to closing as long as it's their way. And
I mean, it's always like that, but why is it more predominant now? That's what I want to know.
I think buyers feel like they have more options, and sellers feel like they're taking a loss to sell.
Do you think it's possible that just the cost of everything is just so much more expensive that purchasing a home is just another
it's even more difficult?
Right.
Seems like every year we say this, purchasing a home is more and more difficult.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no secret. I mean, we just covered credit card debt. Mm-hmm. We've covered, economically things are we're trying to make a soft landing.
So usually with inflation, the price of homes also goes up.
Yeah.
Instead,
well, we've been bringing inflation down, right? I mean, when I mentioned inflation, I meant like post 2020, 2021. I mean, we're close to the Fed's target of 2%. I think we're at like 2.6 or 2.7. We've been there for quite some time, but it still doesn't help that, you had all those inflationary months or even years because prices aren't going. It's not like they go back to where they started. They just stop going up as much. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's what it is that just everything's so damn expensive. I went to Costco today and I'm like a big meat watcher. That came out wrong. I watch the price.
I'll save the jokes.
Yeah, and I even caught myself today being like, God damn it, everything is just getting so expensive.
Egg whites are on my diet. I have very few things on my diet, everybody. Egg whites I have to eat every morning. They are the hottest commodity in town.
Well, eggs in general, because of everything they did with the, they had to kill a bunch of chickens because of that bird flu.
Yes, we have a bird flu every couple of years, and that
But chicken meat is really inexpensive right now.
because they had to kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like they killed something crazy. I looked it up a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I'm talking like millions of chickens. Millions.
Well, they're saving the eggs, but they're not saving the whites. So
yeah,
egg whites are a hot commodity. I found.
No, I mean,
found
eggs,
2 cartons yesterday.
Eggs right now, I
Last year
saw
alone.
like for what is it? Range-free eggs are like $8 a dozen.
That's crazy.
Insane.
This was Trump's whole campaign, is bringing the cost of eggs down.
Yeah. Well, it'll happen. You just gotta grow more chickens.
Well, I was also thinking last night, in 2021, whether you were a buyer or a renter, you were so grateful when you got a house under contract or when you moved into your place, regardless of how much you had to give up to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had renters move into a house last night, and I've never seen such ungrateful people in my life. I even ordered them new garage door openers off my own Amazon accounts, like while they're complaining on the phone to me, upset that the landlord didn't respond to them in 20 minutes. And I was thinking, man, I would love to go back to when people were more grateful to get a house.
Yeah. I mean, again, the more I'm thinking about it, I do think a lot of it is just the fact that things are just expensive. And then I think the other piece of it is this is, again, blanketed statement, but you're dealing with a different type of clientele right now, right? Like, these are people that, if you're a buyer and your whole MO is like, I'm going to get a deal, right? That guy is like, he's your majority of your clients right now. And, those people typically aren't like, oh, I just need a house, let's get this done. Everything is all about getting a deal. And I think a lot of that is part of it. The fact that things are expensive is the other part of it. Because you got a lot of people who don't need to sell, they don't need to move, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to is the next round of like move up buyers, people who have already bought a home, who are buying another home because they want it, not because they need it, and I think that's a little bit more of an exciting purchase than our landlord. I got one for you. I've heard a lot of people that are, basically getting kicked out of their places because they're, the landlord is selling the home. I'm seeing a lot of those, a lot of that. Are you seeing?
Well, I mean, their lease agreement still overrides the sale. So let's say landlord sells the house. I mean, that person still has their lease through the end of their lease. Now, new landlord might not want to renew that.
Right. And that's kind of what I mean. Like the house is being sold, like they might be month to month, or
we're seeing plenty of landlords selling for sure. And I think it's just a matter of people are collecting their cash again.
Or do you think it's the debt?
Yeah, or they have debt to pay off. That's also possible.
This year, again, it's almost just a few days from April 1st. So in the last 3 months, I've done 4 transactions this year where the seller has been a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I am a real estate agent, and I sold one of my own properties as well.
Yeah.
This year. My idea was I wanted the cash so that I could buy more and then resell them again. But I think the other realtor sellers probably are trying to make up for the fact that they haven't sold enough, in their own business, and they want to maintain their level of lifestyle that they've built for themselves.
Right.
They bought all the nice stuff when the market was great. They bought all the nice stuff in 2021, started 22. Through the end of 22, they closed out all those buyers that couldn't buy in the absolute heat of the market. And then 23 hit, and they're like, whatever, I got plenty of savings. 24 hit, and they're like, oh man, the savings are really going down. And then they said, okay, it's 2025. Things haven't changed. I need to sell something and get some money.
You have completely mapped out what one of these guys that I follow pretty much said exactly what you just said. And he ultimately said that he feels that this is going to be the year that is going to put so many real estate agents out of the business.
Good.
Because I would have thought that it was like, last year or even 2023. But he said exactly what you just said as far as the progression and like the way that the money runs out. And I was like, man, I didn't think about it, that you could really drag it out that long. And yeah, he said basically exactly what you said. So find that interesting.
Yeah. I mean, when we have a banner year like 2021, every agent is printing 3 years worth of income that year.
Mm-hmm.
They can usually make it last well. And the smart ones bought more properties, invested well in that time. But God, you got to really be working if you want to continue to sell. No one's selling like they were in 2021.
Right.
There might be some agents that had just started in 2021. Their business has grown since, but
depends on what brokerage you're at, right? I mean,
if you're at EXP, I mean, you're selling 20 houses a day. You don't even need to recruit. All you have to do is attract.
Exactly.
And naturally, you're going to be doing it every time you walk into a room.
Oh, geez.
Doing nothing but attracting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, going back to savings and real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
Those people who exit the real estate industry, I'm assuming they're not retiring. I'm assuming they're going to have to go back to a regular job. My TikTok recently has just been flooded with, when you search one thing once and then TikTok just decides this is what you're into.
Yeah.
TikTok has determined Chase is into what's happening in the job market, which is actually really exciting because every time I get on, I'm like, thank God I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I want to know.
The job market, as far as my TikTok is concerned, there are no jobs out there. Any company that posts a job has 100 applicants immediately.
Mm-hmm.
There are 7-8 interviews for an entry-level position.
Wow.
And it is hard to keep your job once you're hired. And I have 2 quick examples of this. One is this lady who I guess she's going to be a client of Lex. Basically, she signed her lease at her very nice townhouse, $4,100 a month.
Wow.
And she was working at Oracle. Lost her job the same day she moved into this place.
Bummer.
Now she is faced with, in order to get out of this lease, she has to pay a full month of rent on top of the full month of rent security deposit and like another $300 for them to start marketing the property to find a tenant. Once they find a tenant to switch out, then she can stop paying rent. Anyway, end of that story. The other one, a friend of mine named John, very employable software engineer in New York City. He got a job at Google after 8 interviews over the span of like 2 months. Could have been more than 8, I think. He had several tests involved too. Got this job I think he was there 2 weeks and Google had some layoffs and, last in, first out.
Yep.
They're like, we didn't need you before, we don't need you now. Didn't even make it to 1 paycheck. Didn't get severance because he wasn't there long enough. And of course they're going to chop out the last people first because, well, they don't have to pay severance to them. So going back to all of that being said, people used to say it was unsafe to work for yourself. Like, if you wanted to take the safe route,
Yeah.
you work for somebody else. You don't start your own business. But a lot of the people who are in the labor market looking for work could work for themselves doing whatever, specialty they do. Choose not to. But it almost seems like the safer route to bet on yourself than bet on a company hiring you.
I totally agree with that, but the reason that I'm easy to, gain agreement in respect to that is just because of I know who I am, and so I personally have never, I've never had a full-time job that was anything other than commission-based my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
and So with that being said, I think that anybody who is, self-motivated should absolutely, do something entrepreneurial and work for themselves. Unfortunately, I would say probably less than half the people that I encounter are self-motivated. And what's ironic about that is I talk about this a lot with Ina, is that the people who, kind of complain the most about like a corporate environment or anything along those lines, given the not the choice, but just like if they were forced to become self-employed, would fail. It's almost like they need that structure. They need the anxiety, if you will. That's one of my favorite things. It's like I run into people. One of the people that we hang out with is a self-proclaimed stress and anxiety coach. And I remember when I met him and he's like, I'm a stress and anxiety coach. I help people get rid of their stress and anxiety. And I said, stress and anxiety is like the best thing. It is like the best drug in the world for me. As long as you can manage it in respect to saying like, okay, I know I'm frustrated, I'm stressed, I have anxiety, but like that shit is motivating for some. And I would say for others, the people who, given the opportunity to be forced to be self-motivated, would absolutely fail. Corporate environments and management and, just punching a clock, like, hey, you have to be here by 9:00. Like I think is very crucial for a lot of people, unfortunately. So to your point, for somebody who is, capable of being self-motivated, I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree. Like if someone were to say to me, yeah, I work in a corporate environment, I do it because it's easy. It's not hard for me to show up on time. It's not hard for me to like do my job. In fact, sometimes there's additional work and they put the workload on me. And although I know that's not fair, doesn't really bother me. Like that guy. And then he's like, and then I go to the gym in the morning or whenever, like just really regimented. I'm like, you should probably get out of the corporate world. Because there's a lot of real estate agents that I meet that I know are in the real estate business because they can't stand a corporate environment. They can't stand being micromanaged. They can't stand being told what to do and where to be at a certain time. But that's exactly what they need. I don't know if it was you and I, but I think if real estate agents treated real estate more like a job, they would make so much more money. But the reason that most agents get into real estate is because they don't want like a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like I've also met more people in the last 2 months who have said, I want to get into real estate than I have since like 2021.
Do you ever ask them why?
Oh, I do every time. And usually they'll give me something like, oh, well, I just find it really interesting and I want to spend my time showing houses. And I like that you can make your own schedule and you can take vacation whenever you want.
Yeah, there it is.
I'm always horrified. I'm like, man, when I'm on vacation is when I wish I worked in a corporate job.
Right.
Because then I could say, hey, I'm taking my PTO or unpaid time off. Don't bother me.
Yeah, I'm going to leave my phone at my house.
Yeah. Like I was trying to explain to my roommate who works as a waiter at the Four Seasons told me last week he wanted to get into real estate. I think he's already over that idea. But I was like, I have not separated myself from my phone for more than an hour in 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, unless I am asleep, that phone is with me and the ringer's on.
And to be clear, because all I can think of right now is every agent that brags about their financial freedom and, that they do whatever, this, that, and the other.
They're recruiting.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that that's a choice that you make, right? I think it's important to tell people that it's like, yeah, you do that because that's what it takes to, make the income that you want to make and be successful. Like, yeah, you can have your work-life balance in real estate. And for the most part, I don't know anybody who has less than 5 years in this business that makes good money and, does kind of whatever the fuck they want when they want.
Yeah. In 2021, you might have been able to skate by, if you had been in the business for a couple of years and had, the SOI, you might have been able to skate by and kind of do what you want, and people would still come knocking at your door asking to buy it. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of hustle to be able to manage earning a great income in real estate. Like, I could probably do whatever I wanted all day and earn maybe $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
Just
that to me is not. That's
yeah,
under the poverty level.
That won't even pay my MLS fees.
Right. That's what I mean. But I think you made a good point, is that one of the things I've always said about this business is we do definitely catch opportunities to where you can make a lot of money in, maybe a year or two. And it's imperative that during those times you are, I can't tell you how many agents I watched in like 2020 and 21 that were exercising their work-life balance while making six figures that wish they would have really ate at the all-you-can-eat buffet, figuratively, and really just stacked chips, because this business will give you some time to take off that will be out of your control. And so that's another piece of this business that I think is really important to understand, is that, you make your money when it's hot and you save it and you don't spend it, because the term you used was, you had agents making like 3 years worth of income in 1 year. And that's exactly what it was. Because if you didn't save that money as if you needed it for the next 2 years, you are probably disappointed that you went about it a different way.
Mm-hmm. I could have taken off most of 2023. Probably wouldn't miss a beat. I didn't. I might have sold like 6 houses in 2023. Mm-hmm. It wasn't great. That being said, many agents sold zero. Most sold zero. Yeah. So, not to compare though. But yeah, this industry will give you the opportunity to take off time. I just wish there was some big figurehead that told me you will be able to plan a trip for October of 2023. You do not plan the trip during summer of 2022.
Yeah.
It's just you don't know when you're. It's hard to tell when you're going to be busy.
True.
I'm very aware that my Japan trip in mid-April. April is a wrong month to take off in real estate. Mm-hmm. I know that's going to be a pain in the ass. If I wanted to take that same trip in September, I'd feel a lot better about it. It's not as busy. If I wanted to take it in December, that'd be way better. That being said, dominoes fell, and I had the opportunity for, something I'm very excited about, and I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to make sure all my bases are covered, and I have my assistants, showing agents, and backup ready. But yeah, this business will give you the opportunity to take off in opportunities that you need to work hard. It's just hard to, when you're in it, figure out what's what.
The thing for me that and maybe you can correct me on this, is like, if a real estate agent wants to take time off, you can put that on an assistant, or you can literally just tell the client, hey, I'm not going to be in town, so, you may want to work with someone else. You could do that. There's no one that is attached to that transaction. And again, this is where correct me if I'm wrong, because when I do these things, if I were to do that to a client, from the financial standpoint, like, it wouldn't kill me to say, hey, I'm going to be in Japan. I'm not going to really be able to pay much attention to your file. So I think it might be better if you went with another lender. Yeah, I lose the client, maybe lose the relationship in the future, and I definitely lose the commission. But what I was also on the hook is, what's my relationship with the real estate agent going to be like after that? So I've got like a whole nother dynamic that I have to think about, because I've been thinking a lot about this lately. Agents in general are not doing as much business, and I don't think they're going to be doing like, I don't think any agent's going to triple their business in the next 12 months. And
unless their business is extremely small right now and they made a life change.
So here's what's kind of crazy. What I've been doing lately is I've been a little different on the way that I handle transactions based on the production and my relationship with the realtor. So for example, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, because this just isn't who I was years ago. Like, if I have a buyer that I'm not like super connected with, maybe they're difficult to deal with, maybe they're, not. There's a couple different things that irk me sometimes about buyers, right? And if I take the money out of it, it's like I wouldn't work with the client. And then if that buyer is working with a real estate agent that I know doesn't do a lot of deals, I know is not somebody that I have a relationship with, there is a strong possibility that I will let that deal go nowadays versus, kind of a deal's a deal mentality. Because those deals are just something always happens, right? Every single time. And I always would, in addition to that, have this mentality with like, oh, well, maybe I can woo the agent, maybe I'll suck this up because like I can woo the agent or I can like really impress them and then I'm going to get all their deals. But then it's like, they don't have any deals. Or like, they're already like connected with another lender. Like this is just never going to happen. What are your thoughts on, that as far as in relation to being a real estate agent? Is there anybody as far as like a third party? So in my analogy, I have the real estate agent that I also have to worry about in addition to the client, in addition to the commission, or is it really just the client and the commission for y'all?
The only case would be if I got that lead from a referral source that has sent me loads of business. I work with Alexa Ronzi, if
shout out to Alexa.
If one of her, her closed apartment clients wants to buy a house, if she sends me something, I take priority on that.
Mm-hmm.
It not much has come through yet. I think.
Come on, Alexa.
The spigot is starting. I think it will over time.
Just
but I would not tell her, hey, I'm out of town, I can't do this. I would pretend like I was in town. My pictures from that trip are not going to go on social media until after the trip.
Sure. It's not worth it.
And so, that being said, I will warn all my active clients, hey, look, I'm going to be in a 12-hour time difference. Here's who you can contact if you need an answer right now. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that can wait a couple hours, I'll still handle it. But, yeah, like if she sent me someone, I wouldn't say, ooh, go try another agent. I would still figure out how to handle that. But if it was a client, and if it was a client that I've worked with before and established that relationship, I want to make sure that I don't ruin that either. I'm going to figure out how to get coverage while I'm gone. If it's a brand new person, never spoken to them before in my life, they weren't referred by anybody, that would be when it's kind of just the deal that I'm losing.
Yeah.
But then I think about, like, okay, let's say that I let, a brand new buyer or someone wants to list their house for sale. I let this listing go to somebody else. It's like all of a sudden now my trip went from costing me about $3,000 to my trip just costed me like $18,000.
That's how you're looking at it, huh?
And like I just look at everything in terms, realtors meet a new human and they calculate the commission of their whole bloodline.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, it's unfortunate that's how most of us look at the deals. I'm thankful that I don't have to worry about keeping relationships with all these referral sources because I agree that would bug me too. But I'm also just extremely empathetic to people to a fault and to a very big fault. Like
I've watched you give more commission away than any other real estate agent that I know.
And I've done some of the most ridiculous tasks that most agents want. I'm giving two examples here. But I was visiting my mom this weekend. She has a pool in her backyard. I was swimming in the pool.
I saw the Snapchat.
My mom was laying by the pool, and I'm on a phone call. And I put the phone down, and I was like grumbling about having to take the phone call. And she's like, why do you do that? Why don't you just let them, just wait a couple hours? And I'm like, yeah, they could wait a couple hours, but what if I don't respond in a couple hours? And I'm like, this is such a big deal for them. Like, this is the biggest, thing in their life. And I'm the only one they know to call about it.
Right.
And I feel like I just have to be there for them. And it feels easier to me to just go ahead and handle whatever the question, the problem is right there and nip it in the butt right there, than linger on it. And me thinking that I'm upsetting them, they might not even care. They might have been okay with waiting a couple hours. But then it just lingers in my brain more too. The other thing that I did that I don't think any other realtor would do, I had some clients who were moving in their rental house 2 days ago. I was coming back from Baton Rouge. My flight, they had to pick up the keys to this rental house on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. My flight back from Louisiana landed at 9 p.m. the night before. I went home from the airport south to Slaughter. I got in my car, drove up to Northwest Hills, about 40-minute drive, and to make sure that the cleaners did their job, and not just make sure they did their job, I wanted to make sure it was done so well that these extremely picky people didn't have any reason to have a problem the next day. I brought my shop vac and I brought wet wipes. I shop vac the inside of every drawer because there were still crumbs. Deep cleaning didn't get all the crumbs. There were a couple fingernails in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean, I wiped everything. I vacuumed all of the stairs of this house again. Of course, a woman came in the next day and still found problems that I wouldn't have ever noticed.
I'm noticing a theme here.
I am bending over backwards is the theme.
Yes.
That's all.
But I'm noticing is it are what do you call them? Are renters more difficult to deal with than people who are buying?
Sometimes. It depends though.
Because I'm hearing a lot of crazy stories from your potential, renter clients, and
a lot of them could be the exact same people though.
okay,
As in, like, the same couple has provided me dozens of stories already. Because I also don't know when to cut people off.
that sounds about right.
This is probably the biggest issue is I don't know when to say sayonara.
Now, is
these
that
people
because
know that they're difficult?
Is that
too.
because you like the not just these people, but is it because you like the people, or is it because you just can't get the like dollar signs out of your head?
If
you had
if
a bunch of other transactions going on, would you continue to work with said people?
Probably, I'll explain why. So if when I first met this couple, I knew in my head how much work they were going to be, I would not have taken it on. But once I've shown them 20 houses, sent calls or texts to 30, 40 different realtors asking banana questions, asking just the most ridiculous questions to these listing agents, and then me abandoning them after that, I would have been like, man, I just did all this work and got nothing from it.
That sounds like why people stay in marriages.
Yeah. I can assure you that there are so many marriages where people don't like the other person anymore, but it's like, well, they know all my friends, they know all my stories, they know all my
We've
history,
been together
they know
for
all
10
my
years.
families. I can tolerate them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this couple offered me the opportunity. They said, hey, we know that we're difficult. We know that we've seen a lot. We might see a whole bunch more houses. We are giving you the opportunity to part ways with us if you don't feel like you want to deal with us, and we will have no hard feelings. And I told them, I was like, let me try a little longer. The very next house they saw, they ended up leasing. It's $6,000 a month. It wasn't nothing. I would have been really pissed
Yeah.
if I found out on social media that another agent showed them one house and they went ahead and leased it. That would have drove me nuts.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. These are thoughts. I feel like people are asking a lot of me these days, and sometimes I wonder, am I doing too much and does it make me look worse? Throwing my own commission into the deal should be a last resort. And many times it has been. Other times it's been a first resort of, you didn't get this, here, I can make it better. Let me give you some money. Can we move on? Other times we've been like this close to the deal falling apart. But if I could just buy them a new fridge, we're finished and we're through. Yeah, so I feel like throwing money into the deal sometimes makes me look more desperate for the sale, which that's probably not good. But also, I just want to get.
You just want to be over
I
with it.
just want to be over with. There's two great days in new clients. It's meeting the new client for the first time, and when you finally get them out of your system.
Yeah.
Like when they're closed and they're done with.
I get it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I typically try to mitigate kind of some of the things that you're talking about, because I used to be like that big time. I think it's almost like a sales cycle thing. I think part of it comes with experience. I think part of it comes with kind of like age, and then I think the other piece of it is I think you have to be competitive as a salesperson. And so to your point, like I think if these people that you just mentioned, if you would have gone out and told them, hey, you know what, I'm over it, I'm not showing any more homes, and they would have gone and, signed a lease with with another agent, I would argue that the thing that pissed you off the most was that you didn't get the transaction because you're competitive. There's other reasons. You want to get paid, and but it's that competitiveness that, like, I know at least for me and for a lot of other salespeople, just that like wanting to win, wanting to be the one that like gets it done. It's like, oh, I couldn't get it done, but someone else just,
I had a client recently. Her name's Kelly. I don't even mind putting her on blast here. She asked a lot out of me, a whole lot, more than an agent can handle. And in the end, we ended up withdrawing her listing, and I couldn't renew it on MLS because it had just been withdrawn the week before. Talk about someone who couldn't make up their mind. Mm-hmm. Well, we ended up parting our agency relationship there. I said, look, I think you should just go ahead and find a new agent, start over fresh. Maybe they'll bring you good luck.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful when I see that property on the market every single day.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like, as much as her new agent seemed very nice. I talked to her on the phone, explained what she's getting into, and just to prep her, not to try to take it back, just to give her the baseline of this situation. And it's not that I'm happy that she hasn't sold it. I just think about all the other phone calls I would have been taking the last couple months.
I got to hear them all.
And it's just
probably not all of them. Just the ones when you were here.
I wish there was a better way to judge people the very first time you meet them, to say, "Ooh, this is about to make my life horrible."
Mm-hmm.
Because there's another. Well, I haven't even started working with this lady as a client.
Well, maybe that's the key, right? I mean, I've always said, I've been saying this for over a decade, is when I talk to a client, the very first thing that is in my mind is how quickly can I kill this deal? Yeah. And by kill it, I don't mean like kill the relationship, but like, let's look at the credit, let's look at the income. I'm having conversations about what your timeline looks like. I'm handling objections, and I'm doing it in my mind, of course. I'm trying not to portray this to the client, but in my mind, I am doing everything I can to say, this isn't going to work out. This isn't going to work out. And once it goes through the entire funnel and it works out, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good client. And I will admit, I've gotten better at it over the years. I'm definitely not batting 1,000, that's for sure. But maybe that is the key, right? How do you get better at identifying certain things where it's like, this isn't going to, when you see a red flag, my favorite line has always been, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a buddy of mine and I'm like, oh, hey, how's everything going with, Becky? Like, oh, man, we broke up. That chick's crazy, right? They're always crazy. And I think about it, and, I was in the single game for quite some time after my divorce, and I would run into women, you kind of have that conversation eventually where you kind of say, hey, so what's happened in your past relationships? Ultimately saying, like, why are you single? And you would hear this from women on a semi-regular basis. They're like, I'm a lot to handle, right? Or something to that, like, accord. Believe her. Right? Like, believe her. And then here, it's like, oh, what happened with Becky? Oh, I love her. She's wild and crazy, man. She's kind of, she's fun, blah, blah, blah. Month later, Becky's crazy. It's like, well, yeah, she kind of like told you that. So when your client's like, I'm going to be a lot, I'm very picky. Like, believe them. Believe them. Like, they're warning you. They're telling you up front, just like a crazy ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, but some people, yeah, maybe. Maybe I just red is my favorite color of flags. I don't know.
There it is.
But some people warn you when they don't have to. Some people say, yeah, I might be kind of difficult. I just want to make sure I get the perfect house. And they buy the second house they see and have no problems. And then other people, they're like, oh, trust me, I'm super easy. And I also want half the commission up front. I don't know. Or I want
get
a
what you're
discount because I'm going to be so easy, and they are not easy. I have learned, and we've talked about this on the pod before, and I haven't given a like rebate or discount in a long time. I mean, years. Now, money goes into the deal later once we're under contract to fix problems.
But you're saying up front.
But up front. Because I learned anyone who asks for that up front, they're going to be horrible to me because they don't respect me. And I'm glad I learned that.
If you give a mouse a cookie,
they're going to take your whole life by the jugular and throw me under a bus. Yeah.
For sure.
Did I have another thought about that?
Identifying red flags.
Identifying red flags, yeah. So some people, they will say they have red flags that they don't, and they won't admit that they have. So maybe I need to think of some other questions that I can ask people up
That's
front.
where I was going to go with that, yeah.
What other questions would you ask a
I mean,
buyer?
if someone were to say to me, like, you know, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'm a lot. This is gonna, you know, I'm just. I think for most of the time when I hear that, it's more along the lines of like, I'm really nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't typically, you know, because for me, I'm on the financing side. So, but if I was an agent and someone said, hey, I'm really, really picky, right? And I'm probably going to want to see like a lot of homes, and, you know, I'm not going to just like look at 2 homes and buy. Like I'm going to be really difficult. I think right then and there, my comments would ultimately say, well, that's why we need to, you know, have like a good buyer's assessment to identify exactly what it is that you really, really want, instead of going and seeing all of those homes, because it's not going to be helpful for you. One of the things that I have seen happen is people can legitimately see too many homes to the point where they don't remember the homes that they saw.
For sure.
And that is a line that I can't remember who said it to me first, but I think agents should say that on every buyer's consultation, because if you've ever shopped for homes on your own, and I know real estate agents for sure can probably, you know, they're not the ones buying them, but they're the ones showing them. You can't really like remember more than 7 or 8 homes.
Oh, I cap it at 5. Because
Well, in a day though.
yeah, 5
In a day. I'm saying like you're not going to remember, you know, I think that if you have identified a specific market, that there is no reason why you should see more than 10 homes before you make a buying decision. There's no reason for it. Unless you are, and this doesn't make it okay, but I know people that, you know, they look at homes because it's kind of like their thing. And if they found the perfect home, they'd move forward. And, you know, they're the ones that like look at one home once a month for like 3 years in a row. Those aren't buyers. They're just not. And I'm not saying those people won't eventually buy, but like that is not what makes real estate go around. So any buyer that's like, yeah, I want to live in Austin. Okay, perfect. Like, what are your parameters? We find that out. Like, you look at more than 10 homes, I'm blaming that on the real estate agent. 100%. Like, what are we not getting here? You're either showing them things that they told you that they don't want to see, and they call you up and like, hey, I want to see this property. Like, there has to be hard line stops when it's like, you told me that we had to have 4 bedrooms. Why are we looking at a 3-bedroom property? Well, you know, it's just like, no. Like, no. And I think conversations like that up front to a client that says, I'm going to be really difficult, I'm very picky, I'm going to need to see a ton of homes. It's like, no, that's not how any of this works. And it's not what, I mean, I wouldn't say it that way, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And asking additional questions about exactly what it is, and setting the agenda, and saying, now that we've gone over this criteria, if there are things in this criteria that are not super important, say it now. Because if you ask me to see a 3-bedroom property and you're telling me that 4 bedrooms is the only way that this is happening, I'm here to coach you, right? And by coach you, like, when my exercise coach is like, do 20 push-ups and I'm at like 15, I'm like, I can't. You know what he says? He doesn't go, okay, that's okay.
Says make it hurt.
He says, yeah. He says, no, dude, you got this. So I'm your coach. And when you're like, hey, let's go see 123 Main Street. And I'm like, Chase, that's a 3-bedroom property. You told me we needed a 4-bedroom property. It's like, I can't. It's like, no, we're not going. Like those are, and having that conversation up front and setting the agenda that like that is going to happen later on down the road if, you know, that, and I'm doing it for you.
I've pretty much done that for my whole career. Like, given, you know, understood what their criteria was and not allow them to see homes that were outside of it. I've had a couple situations where the buyer would say up front, hey, I know I told you this, but this specific property is special. Then it's a case by case basis because sometimes.
How often does that happen though? I mean, we can't make the the exception be the rule.
I mean, you know, here and there it happens. You know, let's say they needed that 4th bedroom for an office, and then this house instead has like a loft or something else that.
How many buyers do you show more than 10 homes to?
Not many.
Right.
No, I would say the average is 6.
There it is.
There's a couple crazy people in this world, and those are the ones I have to learn how to
set boundaries,
set better boundaries with.
Right.
But yeah, I would say the average is 6. Also, I usually.
Why do you think people like that want to see so many homes? What do you like? Not what they tell you. What do you think the reason is?
I think they genuinely just enjoy walking in other people's houses.
I do too.
Like, I hate showing houses because I've been doing it for years. Like, it's not fun to me. Like, when I was buying my own house, I saw 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I think other people just get a thrill out of seeing other people's houses. And they just don't get the chance again. And they're like, this is my one opportunity.
I think that people look at like.
There's nothing worse. And it only happens with women too. They'll say, I just really love seeing houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to see more. That's when I know I'm about to get taken for a ride.
You know, what was surprising to me, you know, when we first moved to Austin, we were doing a lot of Zillow leads and stuff like that because we just didn't know anybody. And I was shocked the amount of people that would come into Austin, you know, for vacation, and they would want to see houses. And they would ultimately lie. You know, they would say, oh, yeah, we're considering moving here. And, you know, Ina got really good at identifying these people because it was way more than you would think. And, you know, they'd be at a hotel, they're here, they're on vacation, and I don't understand why you would want to visit a city and part of your like experience in that city is to call a real estate agent and go look at houses for like 2 or 3 hours. But there's people way more than you think that do that, and that's another one that I'm just like, what? Why?
I don't know who was having this. Maybe I was listening to this on something else. I don't know. I think it's just extremely rude.
It's totally rude.
Even if
Fuck
there was
those
like,
people. I'll say it right
even
now,
if there's like 1% of intention of buying it, like maybe a 1 in 100 shot that they were interested, it's still really rude. Now, walking into an open house,
yeah, go for it.
There is no problem with that. And I have been on vacation multiple times and walked into an open house, but I'm always honest. I'll be like, yeah, I'm just visiting. I'm just walking through to see what houses. Yeah, I was in Philadelphia, and this house is like built in 1700s. I was like, I just want to know what this looks like.
Yeah, it's cool.
And that's the point of an open house. It's open. Walk in.
Yep.
You're not bothering anybody.
Yeah, you're not.
You don't have to be a lead.
Time. Yeah.
Open house is there for nosy neighbors.
Agreed. I agree completely.
So, yeah, I think Zillow should charge for
a client.
People being lying jerkwads.
That's interesting you say that. We talk about it in our industry as far as like, you know, charging for a credit report. I wonder if there was like a way that lead sources, I mean, I know the short answer is no, but like, can you imagine if there was like I actually have heard of agents that do this. No one I know personally, but you know, you go to these conventions and somebody says they do it where they like take retainers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is a new thing at the Tom Ferry conferences.
That right?
There's a certain. So you go to. Let me just teach them. I'm out of Tom Ferry
we
now.
go.
I'm out of Tom Ferry now. There are many great things about it, but there's
Struck
other
a
things
chord.
that just really just bug me. But that's the whole point of this pod.
It is.
You go to the Tom Ferry conference. You are in this large rectangular room every time, and
It's always really cold.
it's extremely cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like his thing. Tom keeps it cold. Anyway, there is a catwalk in the middle. This is where Tom or the other speakers are. Around this catwalk are the people with the green lanyards. Green lanyards are the agents who have either been
disciples.
been in coaching till they're a legacy, so they've been in coaching for a long ass time, or they are the child of someone who's been in coaching for a long ass time, and they think they are Wait,
You're just
also,
born into it.
everyone in this group thinks they are a celebrity.
Got it.
They are a celebrity for 3 whole days
Yeah.
of the year, and this is the best 3 days of their life because all the other people, the orange lanyards, which is the elite, they already pay 14 grand a year. The core, which is paying 7,000, or God forbid, the general admission, they're all the way in the back. They might as well be standing. All they paid for was a conference, $900. Those people all look at the people in the middle like, oh my God, they are big shot celebrities. And all of these big shot celebrities are bragging about their retainer fees. They're like, oh yeah, I charge a client 20 grand up front. If they ghost me, I keep it. If they buy the house, I give them the money back and take the commission. It sounds great, but who the fuck wants to work with that agent?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, and the people who are saying it the most are the
blonde hair, big hair, don't care.
the children of the legacy agents.
Got it.
Who like their parents like made them the nepo child.
We have some of those here.
But yeah, I can name a few here.
Yeah, same.
Blonde hair, big tits.
They're out there. They're out there.
But yeah, I don't understand this retainer fee and the jackasses at the Tom Ferry conference are the ones who are talking about this lately.
Yeah, I think now here's what's interesting. So I personally do, or at least I try to do, one convention a year. I follow some of the podcasts and everything along those lines. And I actually had this conversation with Matt Kemps because one of the things that I've identified about myself is I personally like to do the coaching and the classes and all of that when like the market's hot, right? Like things are going good, money's being made, and I'm like, I'm going to sharpen my axe, right? Because there's like wood to cut, figuratively. But what it seems like is that the industry in general, when times are slow, it's like they bury their heads in education. And I'm not saying that that's like a terrible idea, but like, I don't know, like, I feel like right now I've talked to more agents that are doing more with coaching, more with classes, more with, have more to tell me about, oh, I was on this coaching call and that coaching call. And, the TikToks and the Instagrams, again, going back to algorithms, I am seeing more know-it-all real estate agents than I've ever seen. And I think the reason is because they have the time to do it, right? And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's like, if you have the time to do it's ironic, I think is what I'm getting at. It's ironic to me that like when the business is hot, you would talk to agents like, because I try to do stuff as a lender to recruit agents to do, like coaching classes and CEs and stuff like that. 2020, 2021, 2022, getting any agent to do anything that would, sharpen their axe, make them better at their career, they couldn't be bothered by it. Oh, I'm so busy closing deals, right? But then when you're super slow and you have nothing better to do, it's like, all I want to do is sit in a classroom and learn about closing real estate when there is no real estate to close. Like, it just sounds counterintuitive to me, right? Education's always important across the board, but like, you don't triple down on education when you're slow. You should triple down on selling, right? Because you're trying to generate new pieces of business. And so to hear you talk about the Tom Ferry stuff, that it's gotten somewhat out of hand, it doesn't surprise me one bit. I can almost guarantee you that room that you were in, it's probably 30% more full now than it was 2 or 3 years ago. because you had agents closing 8 or 9 deals a year thinking that they were rock stars and that they didn't need anybody and they were just too busy to go to a Tom Ferry conference. Tom Ferry's got to be cleaning house right now.
I would love to see the numbers. The conferences looked like they were about the same number of people. That being said, there's more every year that are watching live cast instead of going. But I think in 2021 and 22, people were going there just to wiggle their dicks about how much money they've made.
Okay.
Everyone's talking, oh, what's your volume? How many assistants do you have?
Oh,
how many team members are you on? Like, and then
you're really selling this to me.
now I got out of it, and I could explain why I did too. But now I find that there's more people who are actually sitting in there taking notes because they're like, okay, business is dried up. How do I
that
make
makes
more?
sense
I forgot
to me.
how to make more.
That makes sense.
So I can understand people coming to your classes now because they're like, do you have a secret for me to make money again? Can you tell me where the market's at?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, before we jumped on here, I mean, the comments that we were making that we probably should have recorded was how I feel like a lot of times real estate agents forget that like just doing real estate is the job. You know, there's like other things that can be money-making activity, but like whatever happened to just contacting your clients and closing deals instead of working on like recruiting another agent or like you just mentioned, like getting 3 assistants or scaling your business that's not ready to be scaled.
Yeah. It's interesting if you look at the Bible of real estate, the Keller Williams Red Book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Chapter 1 is building your team.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
I agree.
That makes no sense to me.
Right.
Like chapter 1 should be how to grow an SOI and how to turn that into business.
Yeah.
So at the core of it, that's all we're really doing is meeting people and trying to get them to.
Well, you're the one with the marketing degree. I mean, that's, I think that's what's made you successful.
I honestly don't think college did anything for me. I mean, college was fun. I had a great time. Like,
yeah,
I had fun in classes and everything I did in college, but I don't think it really made a difference. And honestly, I don't know. We've talked about college multiple times on this podcast. I just feel like I have so many thoughts here. This is another thing. I spend time on TikTok looking at videos of, like,
college being a waste of time.
Yeah, just it's sad when people are spending so many tens of thousands of dollars and then still are coming into the worst labor market ever. And all college teaches you how to do is get a job, not how to build a job.
Interesting. Is it debatable that spending tens of thousands of dollars on real estate coaching classes when there is no real big market to capitalize on real estate, is that foolish?
Well, there's always a market. Are you going to capitalize on it or not? I mean, there's plenty of agents. Plenty is a stretch. There's a group of agents, probably out of our 27,000 in Austin, 500 that are doing more than enough business that they're supporting the whole team. Whereas then there's the other 26,000 agents that are struggling, doing one deal a year at best, just enough for them to say, I'll renew one more time.
Yeah.
Keep paying that $2,000 a month.
Kind of like you, I'll show that one more property. Yeah. Just give it up.
Look, I mean, there are times, and I've had this thought, did something change in your brain when you hit 30 years old?
Oh, yeah.
Like, did you feel like
28 for me, honestly.
I'm 28, about to be 29.
Yeah, 28.
I can't get this thought out of my head of, should I just drop everything I'm doing, sell my house? I could probably break even. I could break even. I figure out how to break even. I wouldn't make any money, but I could pay back a loan. I wouldn't make back any money on all the remodel I've done. Whatever. Get rid of everything I'm doing. Get rid of my whole career. I got enough money to live a couple years and just travel and live a life of adventure. I read Jimmy Buffett's autobiography recently.
Okay.
A Pirate Looks at 40. Something, maybe A Pirate Looks at 60. I think it was a little funky title. Like, it wasn't the song. And I was like, man, this guy is just, he did it all in his 20s and 30s and then just like came back and just absolutely dominated in music and business and corporate business growth.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess I just had this thought of I just feel like I've taken a very good route in my career so far at 28 And I'm like, I just want to be reckless for like 2 or 3 years.
Do it.
I don't think so.
I mean, I did something somewhat similar. You know, the idea for me, like 28 was, I always tell anybody who's under, 30, especially guys, I can't really speak that much for women because I'm not one, but if you're under 30 years old, man, you're kind of dumb. Like you're gonna get smarter. Let's just put it that way. Like you might not be dumb, but you're gonna get smarter, and like things are gonna seem a little clearer, if you will. And I can't even necessarily say that that's gonna like mean you're gonna be more driven, or because to your point, some people are like, well, I'm working way too hard. Other people are like, I'm not working hard enough. But like something does change, and for me, it was right around 28, and when I got to be about 30, it kind of was like, okay, I'm getting divorced. I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in. I was doing mortgage stuff, but I was doing it in a way that I didn't really want to. And I sold my house. I made good money on it. I liquidated everything. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. And I basically, I didn't start over because I had a good chunk of change, but I had an idea of what I wanted to do with my business. I knew what I wanted to do as far as like my relationship stuff and all of that. And I knew that I didn't need some big house to impress people. And so, yeah, I kind of did what you're talking about. I didn't go on vacations and stuff, but I started going on more because I kind of did. But I didn't throw caution to the wind. Let's just say that.
Like we're talking, I want to go live in Indonesia for 3 months.
No, I didn't do anything like that.
But also, I might get totally bored after 1 month and be like, I'm done. I'm coming back.
That's true. Yeah, there's something to be said. I mean, I'll be completely honest, and I don't think I've talked about this to anybody other than Ina. I'll say it here on the podcast. I mean, I'm definitely, I'm going to be 41, and I am having very similar feelings to the way that I felt when I was, at that point in my life. Luckily, relationship-wise, I'm happy. I'm not planning on getting a divorce or doing anything along those lines. But financially, and just kind of where I'm at, there is a part of me that wants to, kind of maybe just liquidate and not my business and not but just, kind of pull some things back, repaint the room type of situation, get everything out, get it cleaned, and then put back in the things. This is all figuratively, of course, but put back in the furniture that what, this doesn't fit in here. Fuck it, throw it away, sell it, whatever. So I feel you, man. I feel you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just going through something. Maybe I don't know. Well, it was only a couple months ago where I met that client Kelly that made her rash decision to. At 35 years old, she said, whatever, I'm single, I don't care for my job much, quits her architect job to go move to Curacao to teach scuba diving for free. Essentially, like they pay for your housing. And I was like, that's crazy. I wish I could do that, but I'm not going to do it. I'm relating more to her every day.
The only thing I'll say to that is, and not that I know Kelly, but I feel like I've heard enough about her. I just think people need to be mindful of what by definition is considered to be manic behavior. I talk about this on a semi-regular basis because we all do it. It's just a matter of to what degree. Tattoos, in my opinion, are an example of manic behavior. Women who one day just decide they need a new look and chop off all their hair and dye it. Doing things with the intention that you feel that it's going to be some sort of extreme that is going to, because you're doing this extreme, that you're going to get some crazy wild result out of it. I never have seen that go well for anybody in the long run because, one is face tattoos, right? You want people to look at you different. That's is the most manic behavior. That's the most extreme. Get a face tattoo. Your life will change. But the point is that you are not. It's short lived, and you will whatever it is that you're either running from or hoping for. I assure you, is not going away because of your face tattoo, and you'll experience change. But it's not what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone listening to think that I'm depressed every day. I think I'm just sometimes get bored or just tired of dealing with some things that bug me, and I guess I just have this idea if I went on a very long vacation that it
You're
could
getting
solve
to
my
that age,
problems.
dude. Like
Yeah.
I remember, for me it was it was the divorce and then selling my house and starting Gold Star. That was like one thing. It was like this big thing, this big change I made. And then Gold Star was up and running for about 6 years, and then it was like, I'm going to move to Austin. I want to see if I can operate in a bigger market, right? And that's a whole story and a whole thing. And then, and I wouldn't, and this is, I'm willing to admit, like, these are manic behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said we all do it. It's just like to what degree. And I don't regret any of it, and I think it's all good. But I remember I moved to Austin. I'd bought a house by this time, and like the Austin market, I was doing really well down here. Like money was going well, and I remember looking out of my like back window, and something just hit me, and I was like, "This is it," right? And it's like really hard, I think, for salespeople or just for like, driven people to just kind of say to themselves, like, this is it. Like, yeah, there could be more, like I could do more. But like the moral of the story was that I'd accomplished so many different things and done so many different things that in the end, I kind of always felt the same, right? Like you get that high, like of, yeah, this is sweet, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, it was like, yeah, this is kind of it. And I think that there's something bittersweet about kind of being like, okay, like it's okay to be like, because you're going to have moments where you're not like that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling, like if you're feeling really sad and stuff, talk about it, go see somebody type of thing.
Yeah.
But
I think that's most of the things people ask me. Like if people say, how do you like being in real estate? Well, there's some days that are fantastic. There are other days where I want to just bash my head through a glass window.
and that's life, right?
And people would say, oh, what do you think about Austin? Oh, there's many things I love about it. I'm also really tired of the traffic and the scenery.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and I guess, yeah, it's cliche to say, but what's the saying? I mean, life is more about the journey, right? It's not the destination. Yeah. So it's like doing the things, doing something different. But if you're expecting some sort of, feeling or aha moment or revelation at the end of the journey, like I'm here to tell you, chances are you're probably going to feel very similar than you did when you started. It's the in-between that's the really exciting part. That's why I stopped doing like long periods of time of sobriety. I used to like get sober for long periods of time once a year. And I was doing it because I thought that I was going to have some sort of like aha moment. I was going to be like, oh my God, like this is it. This is what, yeah, why didn't I think of that? And every time it was like, I'm just not drinking, And again, I know for health reasons that there's reasons to not drink. Maybe that was a bad example, but I think that's a big extreme for a lot of people to, stop drinking. And I think a lot of people do it. Not so much your generation, but I think people in my generation do it with the intention that I'm kind of speaking of. They think like something's going to happen, like they're going to, I don't know.
My generation getting sober is the trend now.
Can we please talk about this?
Yes, please.
I have a theory on it.
All right, you go first. And then
No, you go first.
Let me state facts. There are more sober people than ever. Mm-hmm. At least in my cohort of age, we'll say 20.
Can you define sober though? Sober from alcohol?
Oh,
sober from everything.
Sober from alcohol specifically.
Okay, but not sober.
Not sober from everything.
Right.
Sober from alcohol. And by cohort, I mean age 22 through 30. So, I've just noticed more and more people, and now a couple years ago, we had every beverage brand started making their own version of hard seltzer. Mm-hmm. There's no reason I should have ever been drinking a Capri Sun seltzer, Sunny D's seltzer.
Right.
Now I'm seeing all of these beer brands, Corona, Heineken, I don't know, Miller Lite, all of them are making their own zero proof beer. And I'm pretty sure I saw zero proof vodka recently. Like, Actually, Lex was drinking a 0 proof gin and tonic.
Okay.
I tasted it. It tasted exactly like a gin and tonic too.
All right.
And so I've noticed this big push towards, okay, we're now going to sell things to people who are getting off alcohol. I understand these big brands, they're trying to follow the trend. They say if we have market opportunity, we ought to swoop in and try to take it. But what's causing them to get off alcohol? I'm not exactly sure that answer yet.
So here's my theory. I've been thinking about this a lot. And the main reason that I've been thinking about it a lot is because I like to drink. Okay. I don't drink during the week. But on the weekends, I definitely enjoy drinking. And I have noticed on social media and everything along those lines, which is basically controlled. Let's face it. It's basically controlled by like people in their 20s and early 30s. You know, I'm considered like old on social media. And there's so much about like getting sober and multiple comments about how it was the best thing that ever happened and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm trying to think about where to begin with this because I think it's like a 3-prong thing. So I'll start with like, this is not the why. I'll give you the why in a second. But what I think is really, really pushing it is it has become really trendy and really cool to be sober and talk about it and to like push it and almost use it as a marketing tool, whether it be to, you know, for your coaching, for your workout, it's almost like a new club, you know, like, hey, come and hang with the sober people. Oh, and by the way, there's this hydrogen water that there's this supplement, or there's this, and a lot of it is in the guise of sobriety. But then when I like talk to these sober people, they smoke shitloads of weed. They're prescribed to something, you know, that's not a drug, right? Whether it's Xanax, whether it's Adderall, Ativan, some sort of antidepressant, whatever have you, and they all smoke shitloads of weed. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not sobriety. And, you know, then again, I think that the wolves are coming out with this movement. People are smelling blood in the water, and they're using it to push whatever product or coaching that they have. So then, in addition to the fact that, you know, you're seeing it all the time, there's money behind it, and then here's the other part of it is alcohol. If you notice, before like people stopped drinking so much alcohol, what was everybody drinking? Seltzers, right? Why? Because alcohol, for the most part, makes you gain weight, right? So now you've got people who want to buzz, they don't want to gain weight. They're following social media influencers who are talking highly of their sobriety with a lot of undertone of whatever coaching or product that they have. And then, well, what doesn't make you gain weight? Your Ativan, your weed, all that other stuff. And here's the last piece of it that's really interesting to me. So when I was in my like, you know, teens and early 20s, I used to smoke a ton of weed, right? And I probably haven't smoked weed in like, you know, years. I mean, maybe once, you know, at like a party or something type of deal, but like consistently smoked weed. I mean, I watch people walk around and just blow their vape pens like crazy. And when I smoke weed, if I smoke weed, I go to the fucking moon. I get so high, it's insane, to the point where it's like, I don't even know if I ever really want to smoke weed again. Right? And the point I'm trying to make is that if you take a generation and, you know, from a collectively thinking type of thing, you make it socially acceptable to smoke weed. In a lot of places, it's legal, right? You kind of convince the herd that, like, alcohol makes you fat. We all know it's not good for you, but so is fucking everything, food, whatever. And then you go on social media and every influencer is talking about how great sobriety is and how they got a supplement or something. You go a couple months or weeks or Lent and you don't drink, you go back to drinking, you're going to have a fucking bad time one night. And you're going to be like, why do I even do this? Which is exactly how I feel about weed now. And I'm not encouraging anyone to be like, hey, don't get off alcohol, because if you do, you know, when you go back, you're going to, but like, you're going to have a rough time. And I think it's like becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like I remember when I first started drinking, wasn't like the most enjoyable experience. You know, you're mixing things with juice, you're doing all the things. Now I'm like a big beer drinker. I freaking love beer. 15-year-old, 16-year-old me when I first had a beer was like, this is disgusting. But what did you do? You choked it down so you could get a buzz, right? And I think it's the same thing with the younger generation when it comes to the marijuana and the, you know, the prescription drugs and then everything I just made mention of. They're so used to it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when the sobriety hits for a couple of weeks, couple of months, and then it's like, hey, why don't you have a couple drinks with me? You have like 2 White Claws, and you're like, you wake up the next day and you're like, what the fuck? That was awful. And that's how I think it's all going down, and why it's generational, and more importantly, why it's super cool. Because I don't think most young people, I mean, now I'm just getting kind of sciencey, but I think most young people brain-wise are very malleable, and I think they're looking at a lot of their social media and thinking that these people that are talking about sobriety are in earnest, and I don't think all of them are.
That is true. Everyone who gets sober wants to let everybody know about it.
Look at me. Because it's all about attention, right? Look at me. Let me tell you about my sobriety. Let me tell you about, you know, how great it is. And again, I know a lot of people when I've clicked on these, you know, there is somebody that is in Austin that used to be a real estate agent that has been posting multiple posts right now talking about how she has recently gotten sober, and, you know, click the link here to find out, or text this in the whatever. And what it is, it's a she has something to sell. Plain and simple. And it's not real estate. But then that's that like enlightened self-interest, right? It's like, hey, let me tell you about how good I feel. Oh, and by the way, like, here's a product that's a health product that could help you.
Yeah. And most of the people who have given up alcohol have also started drinking other alternatives that in addition to their Xanax and other things.
Right.
They're also buying kava,
yeah, that's another one.
Shrooms, and
right.
Whatever they can get their hand on over the counter as well.
I don't know too many people.
I honestly just think it's a trend right now, and maybe we'll see this longer term. There's going to be something that over time replaces alcohol. I can't see THC drinks replacing alcohol, because the difference is alcohol you can keep going and keep drinking more for longer periods of time.
True.
THC drinks, after you've had like 2, you fall asleep.
I don't know, man. Depends on your tolerance. I've seen certain people, not with THC drinks, but just like weed in general, that can smoke a lot of weed that would, like, you know, put me at sleep for a day. And that's kind of my point, that I had the aha moment with the opposite effect, the weed versus whatever, because
I'm interested to see what happens when Lent is over, which Lent is over as soon as I get to Japan on April 13th.
I would just encourage you to take it slow.
And so, yeah, I'm sure I'll be drinking alcohol that day.
Yeah.
And
so when you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why I drank, I feel like shit. It's like, well, you haven't drank. That's kind of like, you know, how it works.
I'll take it slow first.
Yeah, you should.
Because, I mean, I like drinking. There's nothing against it. I just thought for health reasons, that would be a good thing to give up, because I wasn't going to give up meat this year.
Listen, I'm not advocating that like alcohol or any of the drugs that we talked about are healthy, but yeah, I am convinced that there are a lot of people that are very proud of their proud of their sobriety.
A lot of that too.
Proud of their sobriety for attention-seeking purposes and or, you know, for making money.
Yeah. Do you think? Okay, so as soon as I started going to the gym, of course, I started telling everybody about it. As soon as you start telling everybody about something, your algorithms on social media pick it up, and that's all you see. Do you think my generation, or the people in their 20s, are more health conscious than previous generations were in their 20s? And if so, do you think it's because we're obsessed with social media and looking at ourselves in videos? Or am I just so involved in this now that that's all I see online?
I think that health conscious, as far as my short answer is no. I don't think that any generation is more health conscious than the other. Do I think that being health conscious is more of like a flex than it has been for other generations? Absolutely, 100%. But I know tons of people that that follow and see health conscious content that don't. You know what I mean? Because what's interesting to me is like, I remember when, I was growing up and first started working out. I mean, it was all about being like jacked, meat head, juice head gorilla. And then, that would be in like the early 2000s. And then if you even think about it, you go back to like the 90s, it was all about Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pam Anderson type stuff. Like, it was like, how blonde can your hair be? How big can your tits be? Like, dudes, we're always skipping leg day type of thing. It was all about like, beach body workout, like pecs and arms. And then it went to the like Jersey Shore Jack Gorilla Juice Head. Then it changed to, it was all about abs and being, like skinny fit. Right.
I remember this in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Every commercial was related to abs.
Right. And it's just all it's all these like trends. Right. But all of them were like about health. Right. But it's like, what do we define as health? Right. Is it like the way you look? Is it like what you eat? And so now I see a lot more things less about being jacked and more about, what you eat and just being like fit is what I would call it. But that doesn't mean that anybody like follows it. You could watch it and be more interested in it, but it doesn't seem to really change much. I mean, people do what they want to do. And
I was at Walmart yesterday, and I was not sure what brought me to the cereal aisle. I don't really eat cereal much, but I walked past like the end of the aisle and kind of saw into the cereal aisle. And I noticed there's an entire section of like protein cereal and like, keto, gluten-free.
Yep.
That didn't always exist.
Yes, it did. It didn't always exist, but it
just
existed
wasn't as
during
pretty.
Atkins. So Atkins was.
My grandparents were on Atkins. My grandparents had obesity and diabetes their whole life.
I mean, they've been changing diets forever. It was Atkins, it was South Beach, it was paleo. Now it's all about eating. Now it's all about keto. Keto's the thing. Eat as much protein as you can. Stay away from carbs.
Yeah, we got past intermittent fasting already.
Right.
Nobody's talking about that anymore. It got too.
Nope.
Too boring.
And again, it's all about money, right? So it's this enlightened self-interest that I like to talk about where, the sobriety thing is a great example, where if I am coming from a place of, if I'm coming from a place of something that is good, it doesn't necessarily mean that, I am exploiting it because I'm capitalizing on it, because it's a good thing, right? I mean, that's kind of what they did during COVID. If you want to think about it, it's like, no, we got to do all of these things. Wear your mask. It's all, it's all good. And a lot of people made a lot of money. That's the part that, whether it's the diets, the influence, it's like, you and I, we're bad guys, right? Like, I'm trying to get you to get a mortgage. You're trying to sell somebody a house, right? But we kind of do it too, where we say, hey, we're here to help. We're here to do this. We're here to do that. Couple that like with something even more like, oh, well, this is your health and I'm here to take care of you. Like, and I'm sober. Like, I used to be just like you.
Mm-hmm.
Buy my water.
Yeah.
Right. What else is on your list before we wrap it up?
That was the whole thing.
Oh, I've been thinking about that one way too much lately. You like struck a chord.
All right. This goes back to my empathy
Mm-hmm.
I think I know your answer. Should I get a sense of guilt if someone who I sold a house to in 2021 wants to sell it now and I have to tell them, look, the market is not in your favor and you're losing money when you sell? Should I feel guilty about this?
So I have flat out heard you tell people on sales calls that if you are buying a home and planning on selling it in the next 3 years or less, that you shouldn't buy.
Mhm.
Right? So anybody who
3
bought
years. It was 2022 though.
right, but I personally always say 3 to 5 years. I mean, I have yet, and knock on wood, but I have yet to see somebody purchase a home and own that home for 5 years or more and not walk away with at least somewhat of a profit. I've been in this market for a very long time. I remember when 2008 hit. I've seen people, tens of thousands, some even hundreds of thousands of dollars underwater that after a 5-year timeline were able to get out from underneath that property. 3 years is a little tougher in certain markets, which this is a tough market. I mean, that's a direct indicator of, the market that we're dealing with. But I think that to answer your question, guilt, no. It's not your responsibility to feel guilty. It's definitely your responsibility to educate and kind of make mention of some of the things that I just said. But you talked about somebody who bought in 2021. I mean, 3 years would put it in 2024, so we're a year out, and you're saying that they can't sell because they're underwater?
Mm-hmm.
And are they underwater because the market just shifted so dramatically, or are they underwater because they put down 3% or did down payment assistance or pumped a bunch of seller concessions into the property?
Oh, I mean, mostly just because they bought it at such an inflated price.
Now, are they able to not get out from underneath it, or are they completely underwater because they put like 3% down?
No, I mean, most of these people, they could sell it and pay back their loan.
Right, but they're going to lose money.
They're going to be disappointed when they lose money.
I would never feel guilty about somebody losing money because, this goes. One of the things that I have wrestled with for years is the 3% minimum down payment. It's great for business, and I love being able to get somebody into a home for as little as 3% down. But my problem with it is that if you only have 3% equity in your property, then, in a 2 or 3 year timeline, there's a strong possibility you won't even be able to pay a real estate agent to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good look for anybody. The other piece of like what you're describing, my question would be, why do they want to move?
Let's say hypothetical would be want to relocate, want to change, relocate to another city. Let's say lost their job, not in the same financial position, or don't like the house or neighborhood or wherever they bought.
Everything outside of like lost their job and financial situation, I don't feel bad for people like that. I actually had this exact conversation last night before I went to bed with Ina. One of her clients purchased a property. She's been in it for 3 years. They are underwater, or not underwater, but they would sell and they would not get, all of their money back. But the reason that they want to move is because they want a bigger yard.
Mm-hmm.
So in that instance, I would say, how bad do you want a bigger yard? Like $5,000 bad, $10,000 bad, $15,000 bad? Because again, like it's a nice house. They can afford it. And so to answer your question in those situations, no, I feel the opposite of guilt. I feel like people are ridiculous. Like real estate is a long-term investment. Everybody knows that. Nobody doesn't like, no one thinks you can buy a house and do nothing to it and make money in 6 months. I know that has happened in certain points in the real estate market, but that is wildly unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyone who is purchasing a property with the intention of profiting on that property should know that is a long-term investment. And others that are entering into a property that just don't like it after they bought it, Here's one thing I say. Thank God you can just sell a home, right? Because when I deal with first-time home buyers, a lot of times, they're like, oh, this is a big deal. We're going to live in this house for a really, really long time. Like, it's a big decision. And I'm like, well, you could sell it. And what's shocking is the amount of people that kind of like, I see the look on their face and
they're surprised.
They're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I could just sell it. I mean, I don't have to live here forever. And that's kind of my point. Like, the could sell it part, anyone who can get out from underneath a home, I never feel bad. Like, that's a choice you made. And if you're just upset because you're in a home that you purchased, that you decided to live in, and you just don't like it right now, and you don't want to sell because you're going to lose some money, that's some real first world white people problem shit type of thing, Like, I don't feel bad for you at all. If you purchased a property with little to no money down because you thought that real estate was going to like get you somewhere, and you lost your job and you can't make your payments and you're just struggling, like, yeah, I feel for you there. I do. I would still argue, hey, maybe you should just sell the property. But if you're underwater, yeah, I mean, things just didn't work out. Rent it. Rent the place.
I mean, I had this conversation. This was 2 years ago, and she's still happy about this. Client purchased this condo for, we'll say, a couple dollars short of $400,000 in 2020, like August 2022, as the market was beginning to slow down. A year, yeah. We'll say a year later, maybe it's a little more. She said, honestly, she told me, she's like, honestly, I really just don't like living here. Is there a chance that I can sell it and earn profit or even break even? And I was like, look, you've only owned this house for 1 year. Like, you're not even going to break even. Like, you're going to lose money to sell. I said, what is it that you want to do if you sell it? She's like, I really just want to go back to renting an apartment downtown. I said, your job pays well. You've been promoted since. I know you make a lot of money. Can you not afford this place anymore? She's like, yeah, I can afford it, fine. I can't afford this and someplace else. I said, good, you don't have to. I said, and she said, well, do you think we can rent it out and I can break even on that payment? I said, no, probably not. So her payment's $3,000 something. Her place is worth like maybe $2,200 to rent it out. And I said, but if you're comfortable with this payment, we can rent out this place, and the rent that this renter pays will pay for your downtown apartment. Right. Would you be okay with that? She's like, I guess when I look at it that way, I said, your payment will be the same each month, but you'll live in a place you want, and you'll still be hopefully getting appreciation down there. And she's still comfortable. Investment. Yeah, still comfortable with that idea.
Well, and I think so. Here's the thing that I noticed was in 2009, after the crash and whatnot, I was mainly doing refinances, and I would get phone calls from people on a regular basis that were like, I want to refinance, and we couldn't refinance them because they were underwater, right? This was before like the HARP program and everything. And it was just really interesting to me how frustrated people were with a house that was underwater, because I would ask them, I'd say, well, what's the problem? They're like, oh, my house isn't even worth what I owe on it, and I'm making this payment. And I'm like, well, do you want to sell it? They're like, no, I don't want, I don't want to sell it. They're just so bummed out, 3 or 4 years later, market took off, and these people were like just beating their chests that they had bought in like 2006 versus, the people kind of like what the joke is with when people were buying in 2020 and 2021, like, oh, I'm going to pay over asking price. This is ridiculous. And then you look at the equity position that everybody's in, and they have a 2% interest rate. And we've talked about this. I mean, I sat at closing tables with people that were just like borderline pissed off at the closing that I do annual reviews on right now and call in like 24 and 23. And I'm like, how's everything with the house? Like, oh man, we've done so well. And we have a 2.5% interest rate. And I just want to be like, you looked like you wanted to kill everyone at the closing table because you paid $20,000 over asking, and
they still didn't fix anything.
Right, exactly. And so yeah, I think a lot of the conversations that you're having, or the guilt that you are maybe feeling slightly, is just due to just people just, I don't know, just wanting what they want I mean, we kind of started the entire conversation like that, like nothing's ever good enough. And then when it is, they take all the credit.
Yeah.
Right? They identified the property. They're the ones that, negotiated the deal.
Oh, for sure.
They made it happen. So, you got anything else?
I love when people are proud of their purchase.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't give their realtor credit for anything.
Why would you do that?
They'll say, "Oh yeah, I saw this property and I told my agent we have to put in an offer right now." Oh wow, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else. I was gonna.
We've been going for a while.
About why I hate solar panels, but fuck that. I don't care. Oh, last thing, last one. You mentioned the other day that you don't want to ever buy an investment property in your own neighborhood. Explain.
Oh, I said I wouldn't want to buy an investment property that was like
Why
next
not buy
door.
the block?
I just would. Well, for starters, we started this by saying I'm not a big fan of dealing with tenants in general. So that would be my first piece. My second piece of it is just the idea that I would be so close to a property with tenants that, probably know where I live and everything like that. And I would feel obligated to really be like Johnny on the spot as far as like making sure everything went well with the property. And I just don't need any extra layers of,
I thought there was a more financial reason for that. You didn't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
No, what I actually have talked about is that the house that we have that I live in, there is an older woman that lives next door who does not take very good care of her property, and we have been doing our very best to stay in front of her because I would love to buy that property with the intention of flipping it, because I would love to have a flip that is very close to where I live. That's super convenient. I mean, it's ultimately what we've done with this place, and being fairly handy, and even if it's not something I can do, being able to keep an eye on contractors and everything that's really super close. That to me is extremely awesome and convenient, and I would do that in a heartbeat.
God, flipping the house next door to mine was the best thing ever. I could check on the contractors every single day.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what's going on. If, hypothetically, even if you have to run to the store, contractors are like, oh, man, we need this or we need that. It's not like you're driving across town. So that's something I can really get behind. But if I were to rehab the house next door and then I was to, get tenants in it, I don't know why. It has nothing to do with money.
Oh, gotcha.
It just to me sounds like it just sounds like a nightmare. And maybe I'm wrong, but like knowing that people that I are living in the house that I own, like right next door to me or even down the street, like every time I walk my dog, I'm kind of like, what the fuck they doing over there?
That's how I felt the last year when I purchased the house next door, but the original owner was still living there, continuing to do whatever he wanted in this property.
Yeah.
And I just have to keep thinking, like, I'm going to remodel.
Yeah. I think we should touch on solar panels.
Okay. Yeah, because this will be a great clip for later.
For sure.
What I learned in the last week, it doesn't matter what they say on your app or on even your contract or what it says in the advertisement. If a solar panel company says lease, there is still a lien behind that someone has to pay off at closing.
Yeah. Yeah. I told you when you mentioned this to me, I learned an awful lot about this about 15 years ago doing refinances in the state of Colorado. Colorado was one of the states that was just really spearheading the whole solar panel industry. And I will be the first to say that I once again, blanketed statement, but the whole solar panel industry, in my opinion, is a total fucking racket. The way they sell it, the way that they, the pitch it to clients. And again, it comes back to what we were just talking about with that enlightened self-interest. A lot of the sales pitch is, hey, you're doing what's best for the environment. You should feel really good about this. And there's truth to that part of it, but there is a dark side to the solar business that really bums me out. And the biggest piece of it is that, they're putting this stuff on your house, and whether you want to call it a lease or there's a lien that goes on that property, like a second mortgage, mechanics lien, whatever you want to call it. And when you go to sell that home, somebody is either taking over that lien or you are paying it in the equity of your property. And we dealt with it in the refinance business where people would want to refinance. And here's what's even more messed up. Some of these solar companies, they won't even subordinate the second mortgage, meaning they won't agree to stay in second lien position. So here you've got somebody that's got a 7% interest rate. Interest rates are currently at 5%. We can save them like $500 a month. Solar company knows it, and they're like, yeah, you're not getting that 5% until you pay us our 20 grand that you owe us. And they hold it fucking hostage. It's crazy. Now, I was happy to hear that the solar company that you were talking about was willing to, they weren't holding up the sale.
Which title company said that was extremely rare.
I agree.
Which they were holding it up, but they said they would allow buyer to take over the $56 a month payment. That
it's still a lien on but you're looking at it as a payment. But like, what was the total lien that was
$17,000?
17 grand. So there's 17 grand. Somebody's paying 17 grand, and that's kind of my point. Like, I was shocked when I heard that the solar company was willing to transfer it to a different owner, because it's not unusual that these solar companies want their money. And so they're like, yeah, guess what? You're not selling your house until you pay us this $17,000, because the title company cannot remove an illegitimate lien for no reason, or a legitimate lien for no reason. So then here you are like, okay, we got a deal. We're selling this house. And then it's like, no, you're not. Not until you pay the solar company $17K.
Yeah. I'm kind of embarrassed I even have solar panels on my own house.
Listen, I have friends of mine that are up in Ohio. They own a printing company, and their printing company, the entire, it's a huge building. They've got so many solar panels, and both of them have solar panels on their house. But there's a way to do it, right? And so if you're leasing solar panels and using the solar panels to power the grid, but then you get a discount on your electric and all of that, I'm telling you, you're going to be disappointed when you really put pen to paper and realize how that all works. The people who are getting battery cells for storage purposes, and they're buying the solar panels and they're putting them on their house, and they're powering their house with solar energy. And then if there's not enough solar energy, it flips onto the grid. Hell yeah. But that's a $20,000 initial investment.
Yeah. Mine are financed. I had a friend who worked for Freedom Solar, which is the biggest solar dealer, at least in Texas, probably in most of the South. And he insisted, he's like, you can get them down to $3 per watt, explained what all this meant and how to negotiate. And I was able to buy them for I got 12 kilowatts for 30 grand. Originally, that salesperson wanted $78,000, which my neighbor down the street paid that full amount. And I just can't help but wonder, how much money did that salesperson make?
But that's the point. It's this enlightened self-interest, and you're telling these clients that they're doing something good for the environment and that they're, doing what's right. And then you don't pitch the costs of it. It's not like it's out of pocket. It's literally like the predatory lending that was being done in the early 2000s, where it's hey, this is only $56 a month. Don't mind that we're adding a $17,000 lien onto your property. Don't worry about that. Don't look over there. It's only $56 a month, and you're doing what's right for the planet.
Yeah, mine's it's only $211 a month. Once I kind of realized most months I don't spend that much on electricity.
Right.
That changed because I guess I forgot what else was included in that electric bill, which is also water, trash, sewage, all of that garbage, literally.
Maybe in the summer. But the thing for me too, it's for people that are buying their panels and doing what I mentioned as far as the electrical and stuff, I think more power to you. And that's a big initial investment. It better be a home that you love, because you're not going to receive that ROI for a few years. But then once you do, rock and roll. My only other thing, and this is something that I don't know much about, but my only other thing is I think about it like cell phones. Technology is advancing so quickly. So hypothetically, and I'm just using round numbers here, but let's say I make a $20,000 initial investment and I purchase these solar panels outright because I'm not going to finance them and I'm not doing this lease bullshit, and I'm getting a battery cell and I'm powering my own house, and then I'm backing up on a battery cell if I'm producing too much electricity, and if I have to, I have the ability to go on the grid and everything's going super groovy. What happens if in like 3 to 5 years from now that the solar panels I have are just like the Nokia flip phone, and now everybody's rocking like the Apple 13 or whatever the fuck they're on right now? You know, now I know that's easy to say because it's like no one knows what the future is going to be, but I don't think solar's like there yet. I feel like there's more to be done. Mm-hmm. It'll probably advance more is what I'm trying to say. So I don't even know if it's a great idea to even do what I just made mention of. And again, they tug on these fucking people's heartstrings. It's like, you're doing what's right for the planet. Oh, what's that? You don't have $20,000 to invest? Don't worry about it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put a second lien on your property. You're going to buy this product. We're going to strap it up on your roof, and we'll only charge you like 5% interest. It's like, well, now I'm not even making any money. I'm not even saving any money anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's like a predominant thing. I go to all these networking groups, and there's always somebody that sells fucking solar. And I love it when they want to meet with me, and I sit down and I ask them really good questions, and they're like, well,
yeah. There's a lot of money to be made as a salesperson in solar, but I feel like all the money is made in ripping off old ladies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just ripping off old people in general.
Well, we can't leave on that note.
All right.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to cover?
If you buy a custom built home from a production builder, aka you're buying a house from KB Homes or Taylor Morrison or Lennar, that is not a custom home.
It is not.
You can't even choose your color of walls. They will give you designs from their design center that will allow you to choose from their selected items. You cannot bring in your own items. You cannot choose all of your colors. You can't redesign the architecture, remove windows. They have told you what you can and can't do. It is not a fill in the blank. It is a multiple choice question.
What brought you
Craig Jones? I have a client who understood the Taylor Morrison houses to be semi-custom. Huh? And I agreed with what I thought semi-custom meant in his mind, which is they give you options. You'll pick your options. Mm-hmm. He wanted to bring in his own flooring. He wanted to bring in his own countertops. He wanted to change a floor plan. I knew that was a no-no. He wanted to remove windows. He wanted to... what are the other ones?
And did he want to do this all at like the cost that he thought that this home was going to be, or was he willing to pay more money?
Oh, he was willing to pay more money.
Okay.
But he didn't want the builder to put down flooring that he was going to pay for, and then him have to rip it up after and put down the tile flooring that he wanted.
Okay.
So he tells me, he said, look, the design center has nothing I want. I thought I was going to get a semi-custom home where I could choose all of my finishes. He's like, they won't even let me choose the wall color. They said the walls have to be white. What we ended up going with is, I said, look, get the cheapest base level option of everything. Carpet as much as you can if you want to change all the floors in this house. Carpet the bathrooms for all I care. They'll let you. And then I said, as far as countertops, I'm sorry, they don't carry the marble that you want. Get laminate. Get the cheapest option, and then we'll have to do it in post. He ended up going to the design center, and they did have stuff that he settled for in the end, which was good. But it was a 4-hour phone call of him telling me how he feels gypped that Taylor Morrison would have you pay the earnest money deposit without allowing you access to see what's inside the design center. And then if you see what's inside the design center and you want to get out of the contract, you're losing your earnest money deposit.
Interesting.
And I kind of agree with his take on that.
Yeah.
Because I think they should open up the design center maybe one day a week to say, hey, this is our open house day. You can see
Here's what we've got.
what's in this. I kind of agree with this.
But then
this
don't they
idea
have like model homes and stuff like that?
They do, but that doesn't show you everything because
Okay.
there's a lot more available than what's even on their website.
Okay.
Once you go in person. But it was a 4-hour phone call, and he nearly canceled his contract on this house just because he didn't like the flooring option.
Well, I'm happy to hear you were able to salvage it.
I was, and it almost came down to him having to do a full remodel. He's still going to do a remodel after he closes, but not as much as he thought he'd have to. He's still changing the floor plan after he closes, but at least it won't be all the flooring.
It's all about changes. Changes.
Changes.
There it is.
Time to take the strain.
I knew you'd take my cue. Are you gonna
Time may change me, but I can't change time. Oh, time may change me, but I can't change time. Ziggy play.